In the north woods of Minnesota, just 125 miles below the Canadian border, lies Lake Itasca. Its sky-blue waters formed, according to Indian legend, by the... At its northernmost tip, it overflows into a tree, so narrow that a little boy can make it across in just about 3 jumps. Surprisingly, the current runs due north at first, through forests of birch and pine. Then suddenly, it U-turns south, losing itself in quiet lakes along the way, emerging each time a little wider, a little stronger. Fed by the rains, swelled by melted snows and ice of distant mountains, it builds its power for a 2,500-mile journey to the sea. The Indians called it Father of Waters, the Mississippi. Towns sprang up along its banks. Great cities like Minneapolis and St. Paul grew to face each other across the stream. And a continent-long battle to keep the current navigable and the banks safe against flood began. Today, the Mississippi is an incredible web of dams and locks, one of the world's great highways for a traffic of cargo barges moving north and south. Water levels manipulated easily and efficiently by the skilled hands of the lockmasters. Every variety of cargo, coal, iron ore, and lumber from the mines and forests of the North Country. Manufactured products from the factories of Minneapolis and St. Paul, Dubuque and Keokuk, for transport to St. Louis, Memphis, New Orleans, and all the markets of the world. But the Mississippi is more than an intercontinental trade route. It is a high road of romantic adventure down which you can travel straight into the heart of American history. Come aboard the last of the high-wheeled river steamers, the Delta Queen, as she moves past the green shores of Illinois and Iowa. Today, as in the old days, a deckhand swings the lead to sound the river's depth.
18 feet.
Many years ago, a young writer took his pen name from that deckhand's call. We pull into Hannibal, Missouri, boyhood home of Samuel Langhorne Clemens, better known as Mark Twain. Mark Twain, looking over the river he loved, his river, the Mississippi. His countryside, the land of Becky Thatcher and Aunt Polly, of Jim the Slave and Injun Joe, the King and the Duke, Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. In this house, according to the folklore of the town, Tom Sawyer lived. This is the actual fence, we like to think, that Aunt Polly made him whitewash that sunny afternoon so long ago, to the impoverishment of his playmates and the enrichment of his own pocket. That's Tom Sawyer's window right up there. To this day, you can almost hear Aunt Polly's voice. Hi, you Tom, you Huck. Come back here. Come right back. Yesterday and today, and no doubt 100 years from now, Mark Twain's kids remain untouched by time. Saturday afternoon, and the river waking. Tom's river, Huck's river, Mark Twain's river and ours, the lazy Mississippi, rolling forever to the Gulf. The Delta Queen steams southward on her sentimental journey to the past. Here, just north of St. Louis, the Missouri flows into the Mississippi. The waters commingle to form an even mightier stream. At this place, in the early August of 1673, Marquette, Joliet, and 5 companions entered Illinois. A few miles further south, in the heart of the commercial waterfront district of St. Louis, a forgotten wall bears another imprint of history. Here landed on September 23, 1806, the Lewis and Clark expedition that disclosed to the world an unknown empire. Once rafts and flatboats rode the Mississippi past St. Louis. Today, the past hails the present. That's the Admiral, an ultra-modern, streamlined pleasure cruiser. The Delta Queen moves on. Steamboat on the river, steamboat round the bend. Slowly, we paddle past another era. The Mississippi showboat, relic of minstrel show glory, long since dead. The shanty boat, where squatters claim their rights with rifles, as they did a century ago. And so we come to Memphis, Tennessee, its skyline looming above the big levee that holds the riverbank. The levee, a catch-all wharf for commerce, a snug anchorage for small boats, a parking lot for the city's cars, a bandstand for the blues, Beale Street style. Another dawn on the Mississippi, and the river changes again in mood and character as we ease our way into the deep South. People like to take things easy in these parts, but never the small fry who race the riverboats along the shore. Vicksburg, Mississippi. We go ashore to look again at history frozen in granite and bronze. Here in the fraternity of death lie GIs and generals of a battle long since ended. Victory for the blue, defeat for the gray. On the day Vicksburg fell, the Civil War was decided. The Union was preserved. The old guns are silent now, but the army of a united country still carries on another kind of warfare here. This is the Waterways Experimental Station of the United States Army Engineers, largest hydraulic and soil mechanics laboratory in the world. More than 250 models here represent every section of the Mississippi, testing methods of flood control and teaching the use of the river's flow to best advantage in navigation. Part of the U.S. Army's Mississippi Navy carries us south again to Natchez. Natchez under the hill, lair of pirates in the good old days a century and a half ago. Natchez over the hill and the ghosts of antebellum days. This is Longwood, a great Victorian mansion under construction when the Civil War broke out. According to local legend, at the news of Fort Sumter, the workmen dropped their tools and ran to join the Southern colors. They never returned. The house still stands unfinished. But today, the great pre-Civil War houses of Natchez are by no means all melancholy ruins. Lovingly recreated by the good ladies of the Pilgrimage Garden Club and the Natchez Garden Club, a golden era lives again. It was the crinoline age, hoop skirts and magnolias, banjos plunking behind the house. The days of maidenly blushes, when someone said leg instead of limb. But in the best circles, no one ever did, not even a Yankee. But the times are out of joint. The dream is over and done with, and we're back in the charming Natchez of today. What stories, told and untold, this river knows. These hyacinth-choked backwaters of the Delta country, where Evangeline came in tragic search of her lover and her people. The Bayou folk, Cajuns, still speaking the French of their Canadian ancestors, harvesting their crops of strong Perique tobacco, or fishing the waters of bayou and lake for shrimp and crab and all the freshwater foods that make Louisiana famous. These are sailor folk, descendants of such as Jean Lafitte, the pirate. At the head of the Delta lies New Orleans, the Crescent City. A rooftop panorama moving toward the famous French Quarter takes us 200 years into the past. This is the Cabildo, once the Spanish Palace of Justice, venerable with age and historic significance. And of course, the French Quarter is particularly famous for its lacework, iron lacework, that is. To the student of architecture, this is French, 18th century to be exact, although the architecture of the lady is more modern. We thank you, ladies, for a pleasant visit. Quite in the New Orleans tradition. Quite. To tell the truth, we were really waiting for a streetcar, but this diesel bus will do. A diesel named Desire. No better place to be when you're on the town for entertainment or food, day or night. Let's go inside for a close-up of New Orleans at the table. Meet a Creole couple, descendants of the French and Spanish colonists. A young man and his lady who know their way through a wine list and a menu. Here's where Creole cooking was born, with accent on river food. And man, if you don't think that snapping turtle's fresh, another old New Orleans tradition, pistols for two. At the dueling grounds, pistols for two and coffee for one. The plot to rescue Napoleon from St. Helena and bring him here to live. But something went wrong, and this remained Napoleon's house without Napoleon. And in this house nearby, General Andrew Jackson met with Jean Lafitte to plan the defense of New Orleans against the British in the War of 1812. A great victory for the United States, One, however, after the Treaty of Peace had been signed. The news was a little late in arriving from Europe by sailing vessel. Again, the waterfront and the Great Levee, a perfect downhill straightaway for soapbox speed demons. An old steamboat pilot once lived here. He built his house like a paddle wheeler to remind him of the river. But New Orleans, great port that it is not journey's end for the Mississippi traveler. Let's ride a giant oil tanker down the last 125 miles of river below the city. A tricky navigation problem this, with many a sandbar underneath our keel. But the bar pilot knows these waters and its safe passage ahead. We've left New Orleans far behind, and now we are on one of the many tongues of the Mississippi that flow into the Gulf of Mexico. Watch for a playful dolphin under our bow. There she plunges, off to port. Miles further down the river, thunderheads build up astern, but forward, only blue sky and sunny waters. Below Pilot Town, we pass the final point of land where the Great South Passage meets the open sea. Now the channel widens. A pilot boat comes up from off our stern to ride with us across the bar. Our pilot goes overside to recommence his never-ending shuttle back to Pilot Town once more. We leave the muddy waters of the Mississippi and pass at last into the clear blue current of the Gulf. For this is River's End, but only the beginning of the longer voyage to ports of call beyond the sea.